Rainbow Reflections, Book 2, Put Out the Fire, Chapter 21, Time to Be Gone. Once Zin had left the counseling office, Hyaktu went to the admin office to write up their second referral and put it in their records. He then waited for the lunch bell before calling for Khurshid and Fern telepathically, leaving out Wave as he discussed his child. The teacher soon arrived to the office, closing the door behind them. "I think I know what's going on with Zin's magic," Hyaktu exclaimed, the words bursting from him after waiting so long for the teachers. "Here I thought you'd have more information on Aster," Fern sighed. "I was hoping Ren had another vision of his location."
"At least it's not more dangerous plants inside the school,"
commented Khurshid. Hyaktu sighed inwardly, wondering if he should press on. As the teacher said nothing else, he said simply, "Zin is doing spirit magic." Khurshid's eyes stared blindly past Hyaktu's shoulder as he frowned, clearly not expecting this.
"What makes you think that?"
he asked. "This entire time," Hyaktu said, pacing the empty space of the room, "they've been using spirit magic instead of elemental, creating instead of controlling." "What do you mean, the entire time?" Fern asked stiffly. "Remember the hoverboat incident that happened over the summer? Zin thought it was C3 speeding up their boat, but what if it was Zin's own intentions to make the boat faster? And that time the doors broke, I didn't detect anything outside. What if they were so angry with me, they wanted to break something and the door shattered? And in class when they made the fire explode, they were trying to urge it." "But if they made the fire explode, wouldn't they be controlling it with elemental magic?" Fern asked. "Or creating a wind to make it burst, which they could have done for the assessments when they put out the fire," Hyaktu said.
"Then that'd be air magic, but still elemental,"
Khurshid pointed out. "We all know there's a fine line between the two magics at times," Hyaktu grumbled. "But it sounds like elemental magic was used for each of the things you've listed, apart from the glass doors," Fern said. "The boats, C3. The fire, air or fire magic. I don't think this is spirit magic, Hyaktu." Hyaktu lifted his pointer finger. "Hold on a moment, I'm not done," he said, the excitement making his hand shake. "They just turned invisible this morning." "Invisibility potion," Fern said instantly. "No, Zin didn't use a potion," Hyaktu insisted. "And they made themselves appear again, right in front of me." "Because the potion's effects wore off," Fern stated bluntly. Hyaktu shook his head. "They visualized themselves being invisible and visible, and made it so. They're using spirit magic."
"But why? Why would they be connected to spirit magic?"
Khurshid asked slowly. Hyaktu stared at the floor for a moment, coming to a halt in his tracks. "You don't think they're a spirit?" Fern asked skeptically. Hyaktu shrugged. "They could be."
"What would that mean?"
Khurshid asked. Hyaktu ran a hand through his hair. "I'm not sure," he admitted. "The orphanage had no information on them, and definitely nothing about spirit involvement, like I've suspected with Ren. Nor have they ever appeared spirity. Apart from their supposed magic block, there's never been anything really different about them. Not counting their unique personality, that is," he added hastily. "I wouldn't see Zinnivis as a spirit," Fern grumbled. "Ren, on the other hand, she at least has a deep bond to meditation and spirituality, and her appearance definitely sounds like there are spirits involved. If anyone was a spirit, I'd think of Ren." Khurshid rubbed his large nose.
"Ren does seem to have a deeper connection to the spirit realm, but I always assumed that to be due to how she was raised. Zin has never seemed like a spirit, or spiritual, to me."
Hyaktu sighed. "I know, but their connection to spirit "How do we know it's spirit magic?" Fern interrupted. "They have fire or perhaps air. They merely lacked confidence in themselves that they weren't able to do anything with magic at first. Then when they got frustrated, they were able to make the fire explode." "But they still made themselves invisible," Hyaktu said firmly. "That's clearly spirit magic at work." "Or an invisibility potion." "Zin said that they didn't take any potions."
"Maybe they lied,"
Khurshid grunted. "Zin wouldn't lie about something so serious," Hyaktu uttered. Fern glanced towards Khurshid, her lips pursed. Then she muttered, "You might think your kids are good and special, but they're teens. They'll lie about serious things like any other teen. We already know Ren to be a liar from last year, when she got Zinnivis enrolled without magic." "My kids would never lie to me if I asked them directly."
"We're getting off topic,"
Khurshid said with a loud sigh.
"I do agree with Fern that Zin likely took an invisibility potion from her storage or otherwise got one brewed up."
"Yes," Fern said. "They're friends with Mint after all, and Mint is an excellent potion maker. Mint is also easily swayed, and likely would have helped Zinnivis with the potion." Hyaktu sighed heavily. He was quiet for a moment, then murmured, "You think I'm overreacting, don't you?" "Yes," Fern said bluntly, her mismatched gaze unwavering. "It is very unlikely."
"Zin's poor magic seems to be the result of low self-esteem,"
Khurshid agreed. "Is there any way to test if someone is a spirit or not?" Hyaktu asked Fern. She twirled her curly hair around one finger as she gathered her thoughts. "The easiest method would be to see if they have a second, more spirit-looking form." "And how do we do that?" Hyaktu asked. "Any spirit I've come across has always known that they were a spirit, and has been able to switch between however many forms they've got." "I'm not sure. I have never met a spirit in this realm who didn't already know they were a spirit. I've never seen a spirit who had a human form from birth. Spirits gain a human form if they want to have close contact with humans later in their lives. The only spirit that closely resembles humans are fairies. Even then, we are clearly different." Fern pointed to the green vine-like tattoos weaving along her body and face. She refused to take on a truly human form, not wanting to leave her tattoos, and her connection to the fairies, behind. "Yes," Hyaktu murmured in agreement. "I've never seen any other spirit's original form appearing human-like. Do you think it's possible Zin is a fairy?" Fern shook her head at once. "Fairies have tattoos from birth, and more pointed ears. Zinnivis doesn't have either. That pretty much says they aren't a spirit to me. They just have some strange connection to spirit magic, if they have that. For all we know, their elemental magic works sporadically." Hyaktu sighed. "Well, I'll have to continue to look into this myself." He straightened and said seriously, "I don't want Zin knowing anything about this for the time being. I need to look more into the matter first, and make sure I have as much information as possible before I approach them about this." "Yes, Hyaktu." They fell quiet, but the silence did not last long. Loud and aggressive screams sounded outside the admin office. Fern, closest to the door, swiveled around quickly and threw it open. Hyaktu hurried after her, Khurshid trailing last. The door to the entrance hall slammed loudly to the left, but Hyaktu paid no attention to the figure making their escape on the other side of the admin hall. He could only stare at the person lying limp on the floor in front of him, her head bloody. "Sarala!" Hyaktu and Fern instantly swooped to Sarala's side, dread shooting through Hyaktu and making the hair on his arms stand up. "She's unconscious," Fern said, checking the girl's wrist for her pulse. Hyaktu let out a small sigh of relief, but it didn't last long. He got to his feet wordlessly, then charged for the door to the entrance hall, Khurshid on his heels. Hyaktu hurled a large slice of air magic at the door, flinging it wide before they reached it. The two hurried into the entrance hall, just to see one of the glass doors had been shattered. Hyaktu ignored the glass crunching under his feet as he sprinted across the wood and into the snow. There were clear tracks leading from the school to the trees ahead. Hyaktu hurried after the footprints, throwing himself through bushes and dodging any tree in his way. Khurshid crashed into the undergrowth behind him. Eventually, the tracks vanished. Hyaktu frowned and slid to a stop as he realized that they'd gone. He backtracked, but he couldn't find where he had lost the attacker's prints. The slush was churned all over the place from him and Khurshid sprinting through the trees. "Do you sense anyone around?" Hyaktu asked.
"Just wildlife,"
Khurshid said, raising his hands in front of him to feel the air. Hyaktu sighed. "They can't have escaped. I have to know who got in, and why they targeted Sarala." But after several minutes of searching and attempting to reach out with spirit magic, he realized that the attacker was likely far away by now. Even if Hyaktu managed to find their tracks, the intruder would probably have more time to conceal their footprints again. "Let's get back to the school," Hyaktu muttered. He and Khurshid turned and headed back the way they'd come, Khurshid keeping his hands moving to detect if anyone was sneaking up on them. But they returned to the school without issue, walking through the space left by the shattered door once more. Hyaktu walked briskly down the entrance hall and to the admin hall, but Sarala and Fern weren't near the admin office, only a small blood spot signaling where Sarala had been. Fern must have gotten her to the healing room. Khurshid, I want you to check the whole school for any signs of Sarala's attacker, Hyaktu said curtly.
Understood.
Khurshid hurried through the door on the left, which led to the counseling office and then to the courtyard. Hyaktu pressed on, heading for the next door that led to the healing room. Sarala has to be okay. Please let her be okay. He opened the door and stepped inside. Fern, how is... He cut himself off, coming to an abrupt halt in his tracks as he realized that the green room was empty. Nobody sat on the chairs to the left, and nobody lay on the beds in the center of the room. Only one bed had ruffled sheets on it, as if the occupant had fallen out. Fallen out, or dragged away? Hyaktu wondered. Fern, he called, turning back into the admin hall, his heart beginning to race again. He walked to the admin office, but the room was empty apart from the furniture. He checked the security office, the storage room, the first floor of the southeastern tower, but he saw no sign of Fern or Sarala. Fern, where are you? Where's Sarala? Are you both okay? Fear flooded his body. What if Sarala's attacker fled to lead Hyaktu away, but they had a companion who attacked Fern the moment his back was turned? But there couldn't have been multiple attackers. There was only one set of footprints outside, Hyaktu remembered. And those footprints, they led away from the school, not to it. The attacker was already here since the last snowfall. His heart skipped several beats. It had to be Mimeta. She's human, so she'd be able to get in, unlike Kaokat. But what about the anti-Mimeta enchantments I put up? Those should have worked, unless my magic isn't working? He shook his head roughly at the thought. No, it has to be working. Jabali's checked the enchantments multiple times. I just didn't detect anyone when I reached out because maybe they entered an area with an enchanted shield of their own to block me out? Gah! Head spinning, Hyaktu headed back through the admin hall. But who could it have been? Who attacked Sarala? Where is Fern?